download, stand back, listen. Another grade 9 response for Much Ado About Nothing for OCR GCSE English Literature. Decimate normality. Stand back for some double-barreled bard. Yes, Schofield on Shakespeare.
Abbiamo il cuore a strisce, portaci dove vuoi.
You need to know what the examiner is looking for, especially at the top ends. So to get full marks, your essay needs to be very well written and to flow using consistently formal language. You need to show a perceptive understanding of the extract in relation to the question and the play as a whole. You need to embed carefully chosen quotations, both from the passage and those you have previously memorised from the entire play. You need to probe these quotations in detail using subject terminology. And you also need to weave in a few references to the context. Remember, Much Ado was first performed in 1599, when the world was a very different place. There are also 4 marks for spag. Here's a past question. How does Shakespeare present villainy in Much Ado About Nothing? Refer to this extract from Act 2, Scene 2 and elsewhere in the play. I would recommend writing a full response on this before comparing it to mine. So the extract will appear at 5-second intervals. What are you waiting for? Get writing.
How did you get on? Produce a delicious response. Time to compare your response with my 40 out of 40 masterpiece.
In this extract, Borachio outlines his villainous plan to thwart the marriage of Hero and Claudio, which will cause widespread chaos. The plan is detailed and well thought through. The overall impression is that such villainy may be difficult to counteract, especially given the incompetence of the constable and the relaxed, celebratory mood of the majority following a remarkably successful war. To modern audiences at least, the villainy in Much Ado About Nothing seems tinged with misogyny. In this extract, Borachio reveals his plan to dishonour Hero, which he will do by falsely implying that she is having sex before marriage with another man. He tells Don Pedro that he had wronged his honour in marrying the renowned Claudio to a contaminated stale. The misogyny has 2 levels here. Firstly, there is the suggestion that Hero will be painted as a contaminated stale or a prostitute who has been handled sexually on multiple occasions and hence, within Elizabethan England, would be seen as unfit for a respectable marriage due to loss of virginity and purity. But secondly, it is notable that the focus is on the man wronging his honour by helping facilitate such a union, which puts the male perspective on a pedestal and positions the woman as a mere subordinate. This extract also shows the determination of villainy to wreak as much havoc to as many different people as possible. We know that Don John is sick in displeasure to Don Pedro and appears to be displeased by Claudio receiving so much positive attention. That young startup have all the glory of my overthrow. However, Borachio lists 4 people who have suffered due to their plan. Don John will be able to misuse the prince to vex Claudio to undo Hero and kill Leonato. Note the use of auxasis with each verb increasing in the amount of damage to be caused to each successive individual. However, the 2 individuals Don John presumably dislikes the most are only to be mistreated and irked, whereas poor Hero will have her entire reputation savaged and her father will end up dying due to the shame and shock. Thus, the impression we get here is of villainy being frighteningly indiscriminate in its targets and relishing widespread chaos. This passage also shows that villainy, in this case Borachio, has a very good understanding of human nature. His plan centres on mistaken identity, and Don Pedro and Claudio mistaking Margaret for Hero just because the latter name has been uttered and the location is outside her chamber window. As a consequence of this, he realises that there shall appear such seeming truth of Hero's disloyalty that jealousy should be called assurance. Borachio knows that human beings, especially young immature ones like Claudio, can be swayed by superficial appearances, and that men can be so preoccupied by the ignominy of being cuckolded, hence the repeated imagery of horns throughout the play, that they can be left feeling absurdly confident about female treachery. This turns out to be correct, so much so that Claudio extends the villainy by choosing to shame Hero during the actual wedding ceremony. So the villainy in Much Ado About Nothing is astute, and this is also seen early on in the play when Borachio gleans that Don Pedro is only helping Claudio, rather than wooing Hero for himself, something Antonio's man singularly fails to perceive. There is also a sense that for Don John at least, his villainy is an integral part of his identity, and that he is not very good at masking it. He describes himself as a plain-dealing villain, trusted with a muzzle, enfranchised with a clog. Whereas the modern-day meaning of villain is principally someone involved in criminality. In Shakespeare's time, it would also encompass someone low-born with ignoble ideas, and thus would be a far more shameful insult, hence the significance of Benedict declaring Claudio a villain following Hero's death. Thus, in these lines, Don John is independently disassociating himself from his aristocratic paternal lineage, something particularly shocking for a class-obsessed Elizabethan audience. However, there is also a sense here that Don John feels bitter by his compromised status and freedom as a bastard, and someone who has recently stood out against his brother. The imagery of a muzzle and clog suggests that Don John feels as though he is treated more like a wild animal in need of physical restraints to temper and control, rather than a respected, honoured brother. Consequently, Don John's desire to cause harm has only grown, contributing to him fully embracing his inner malignity, seek not to alter me, and leaving him keen to find outlets to vent. When Don John tells Claudio and Don Pedro that Hero is disloyal, it is notable that he prefaces the idea with a point about his brother's work to help engineer the marriage. He tells Claudio, "For my brother have hoped to effect your ensuing marriage, surely suit ill spent and labour ill bestowed." This implicitly focuses on the idea of male honour, something so fated during the Elizabethan period. By suggesting that male honour may be at stake, Don John is striking at the very heart of the Elizabethan male. The parallelism of suit ill spent and labour ill bestowed suggests that the men's actions may have unwittingly threatened their honour and reputation, and this point is made prior to the suggestion that the lady is disloyal. Don John's villainy here is intelligent and shrewd. He's an outsider and doesn't try to hide this. You may think I love you not. And he understands that if he were to immediately accuse Hero without any preamble, he could be dismissed as a bitter lunatic. However, by suggesting that male honour may be at stake before his accusation, he ensures that Claudio and Don Pedro are sufficiently worried and riled, and therefore more likely to take his accusation seriously. The villainy in the play impresses due to its repeated strategic cunning. Arguably, the only reason it is not successful is that Borachio's post-event celebratory drunkenness results in ill-timed boasting, which is overheard.
What makes this an outstanding response?
Sum up the extract in relation to the question within a short, lively introduction. Ensure your topic sentences are not just focused on the question, but are as precise and detailed as possible. Would Shakespeare's audience have been quite as bothered by the plot to besmirch Hero? I wonder. Choose your quotations incredibly carefully, and don't be afraid to re-quote if it means that your analysis is even more precise and targeted. Use square brackets when inserting words into your quotation so that your entire sentence flows and makes clear grammatical sense. Remember to weave in and integrate references to the context. Here, the patriarchal context makes it more significant than it would be within today's society that Hero has been painted as a contaminated stale. To go ahead with the marriage would be impossible due to the shame on male honour, both Leonato's Claudio's and even Don Pedro's. Keep using keywords from the question throughout the essay. And don't be afraid to show off your understanding of the play as a whole, as I do here within brackets, if it results in an even more detailed, focused argument. And of course, ensure you use subject terminology so that your analysis is precise and focused. You may find it helpful to read through the ideas from the mark scheme split into assessment objectives 1, 2 and 3. Press pause if you would like to read these through.
This essay has given you help with structuring essays and exploring language in sufficient detail, as well as giving detailed insight into the play as a whole. But remember, Much Ado is a fabulous play. The more you read it, the more you watch productions, to watch films, the better your essays will be and the more likely you will be able to get a grade 9. This has been Schofield on Shakespeare.